General Tanaka spreads satellite imagery across the bunker's conference table. His weathered hands, steady despite 72 hours without sleep, point to anomalous objects captured on the edge of Earth's atmosphere. These aren't debris, Madam President. They're scout ships. Their stealth technology is advanced, but our deep space array detected gravitational inconsistencies 3 days ago. The Joint Chiefs exchange glances. Admiral Rivera clears her throat. How long have we known about aliens, General? The real timeline, not the official one. Tanaka's expression remains neutral. The 2032 Tunguska incident wasn't a meteor, Admiral. It was a scout ship, crashed due to interaction with our magnetosphere. We recovered partial technology and one body. The Secretary of Defense slams his fist on the table. 15 years. 15 years you've been running a shadow program without congressional oversight. Not without oversight, sir, Tanaka replies calmly. Project Aegis operates under joint international authority. Every permanent member of the UN Security Council has representation. Outside the bunker, chaos spreads across major cities. The sudden failure of satellite communications triggers panic buying. Traffic systems malfunction, causing gridlock. Hospitals switch to emergency power as electrical grids fluctuate. On social media, blurry photos of strange lights in the sky multiply hourly until those platforms also go dark. Dr. Chen works frantically in her lab, cross-referencing signal patterns with known astronomical phenomena. Nothing matches. Marcus arrives with coffee and a grim expression. Pentagon just issued emergency broadcast system alerts, he says, setting down the cups. They're blaming it on solar flares, but the sun is quieter than it's been in decades. Chen's fingers fly across her keyboard. Look at this distribution pattern. These aren't random failures. They're methodical. Communications, navigation, military vans, in that exact order. Someone's preparing the battlefield. Marcus runs a hand through his disheveled hair. For what? The lab's lights flicker, then fail completely. Emergency lighting bathes everything in red. Chen's computer switches to backup power as her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Black SUV outside. 2 minutes. Bring the signal data. Come alone. Against Marcus's protests, she downloads the data to a secure drive and heads for the parking lot. Before she reaches the door, he catches her arm. Not alone, he insists. His expression leaves no room for argument. Outside, under a sky unnaturally bright with stars, light pollution suddenly absent with city power failing, a vehicle idles with government plates. The driver, a woman in an unmarked uniform, says nothing as they approach, merely nods toward the open rear door. Inside, a familiar face awaits. Director Collins of DARE-PA, who personally rejected Chen's funding request last year. Your research wasn't rejected, Doctor, Collins says before Chen can speak. It was classified. You've been working for us the entire time, just without knowing it. As the SUV pulls away, the sky above them ripples with aurora-like effects, never before seen at this latitude. Collins glances upward in size. They're earlier than our models predicted. Their cloaking technology improved faster than we anticipated. She hands Chen a tablet displaying what appears to be a topographical map of the southwestern desert. Welcome to Project Aegis. Everything you've discovered about our visitors in the past 3 years, we learned a decade ago. The difference is, we've had time to prepare. Marcus stares at the tablet, then at Collins. Prepare for what exactly? The car's windows automatically darken as Collins responds. For the day humanity would need to prove it isn't easy prey. That day is tomorrow. She checks her watch. Perhaps sooner. Above them, invisible to naked eyes but clear on Chen's instruments, the Azrathi Vanguard begins its systematic elimination of Earth's orbital infrastructure. Unaware that every destroyed satellite feeds critical data back to hidden receivers buried deep beneath mountain ranges and ocean floors around the planet. Professor Zhang leads Chen and Williams through the underground complex, His limp, once familiar to Chen during their years working together, now completely absent. Another lie in a cascade of deceptions. You fake your disability too? Chen asks, struggling to keep pace with his brisk stride. Zhang shrugs. Easier to be underestimated. You'd be surprised how many secrets people share around a man they perceive as harmless. The corridor opens into a vast chamber where a holographic display of the solar system dominates the center. Tiny lights representing the Azrathi scout ships blink near Earth orbit. Scientists and military personnel from seemingly every nation work at stations surrounding the display, their conversations a polyglot murmur of urgent preparation. 15 years, Williams whispers, taking in the scale of the operation. How did you keep this secret? Compartmentalization. Zhang answers. Most workers knew only their specific tasks. The mining operations on the moon that the public thinks are harvesting helium-3. They're building our primary defensive array, the International Mars mission. A military outpost disguised as scientific research. Chen stops walking, forcing Zhang to turn back. The Artemis telescope array I helped design was repurposed as a targeting system for particle weapons. Zhang finishes. Your work saved us years of development. Did you never wonder why funding appeared so easily for your purely theoretical designs? Before Chen can respond, a technician rushes toward them. Professor, they've taken out the last of our decoy satellites. The Vanguard is moving to Phase 2. Zhang gestures toward a large screen showing a simulation of Earth's orbital paths. Their next targets will be our legitimate communication infrastructure. When those go down, global panic. Williams interrupts. Stock markets crash. Supply chains collapse. Governments lose control. Precisely what they want, Zhang confirms. Chaos weakens resistance, but we've prepared for this too. He taps commands into a nearby console. The screen shifts to show a secondary network of satellites previously invisible. Stealth communications grid. Military and emergency services will maintain contact even when public networks fail. Ken studies the orbital patterns. These are in unconventional orbits. How did you launch them without anyone noticing? Zhang smiles thinly. Who says we launched them? Some have been in position since the 1980s, disguised as Soviet and American failed missions. Others piggyback on commercial satellite deployments, detaching once in orbit and activating stealth systems. A low rumble passes through the facility, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. Zhang checks his watch. Right on schedule. They're testing our atmospheric defenses with kinetic strikes. They're bombing us. Williams asks, voice rising. Small asteroids redirected toward uninhabited areas. Zhang clarifies. They want to measure our response capabilities. Chen moves to a workstation, studying incoming data. These impact locations aren't random. They're testing for something specific. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, mapping the strike pattern. They're probing for underground facilities, like this one. Zhang nods approvingly. You see why we needed you. Your pattern recognition skills are unmatched. He gestures to an empty workstation. This is yours now. Help us understand what they're planning next. As Chen sits, the facility lights dim momentarily as another impact registers. The holographic display shows a new alert. A massive energy surge from the lead Azrathi vessel. They're scanning deeper now. A technician announces. Penetrating scan activated. Zhang's expression hardens. Time for our first real countermeasure. He enters an authorization code into his terminal. Activating Project Mirage. Throughout the solar system, thousands of previously dormant devices activate simultaneously, generating false readings that multiply Earth's apparent defensive capabilities tenfold. To Azrathi scanners, the planet suddenly bristles with weapons that don't exist, defense systems that are merely projections, and military installations that are nothing but elaborate holograms. Let them waste ammunition on ghosts, Zhang says quietly. Every shot reveals their weapons' capabilities to our sensors. Chen stares at her old mentor with new eyes. You've thought of everything. Not everything, Zhang admits, but enough, we hope. Enough to ensure that when they send their strongest fleet, it never even reaches orbit. Admiral Jorak studies the holographic display of Earth with growing unease. The tactical overlay shows thousands of defensive emplacements, weapons platforms, and military installations, none of which appeared on initial scans. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vexter, approaches with mandibles tight against his facial plates, a sign of anxiety in their species. Admiral, our sensors detect inconsistencies in the new readings, Vexter reports. The energy signatures fluctuate in patterns that contradict known weapons technology. Jorak's compound eyes narrow. Deception. Possibly. Or technological capabilities beyond our understanding. Vexter manipulates the display, highlighting several locations. These installations appeared simultaneously, with identical power signatures despite variable sizes. Probability of natural occurrence. Negligible. The Admiral's claws tap rhythmically against his command chair. The Imperium expects a swift victory. The Emperor himself watches this conquest through quantum-linked observation systems. Failure is not an option, but neither is walking into a trap. Launch probe drones, Jorak orders. Full spectrum analysis on 3 of these installations. Minimal approach velocity. As the drones deploy, the Admiral opens a secure channel to Imperial Command. His report is carefully worded. Vanguard operations proceeding as planned. Minor anomalies detected, under investigation. Request tactical assessment of First Imperial Armada deployment timeline. The response comes immediately. Continue as scheduled. First Imperial Armada entering final jump coordinates. Arrival in 17 cycles. Prepare planetary approach vectors. Jorak closes the channel, his exoskeleton tightening with stress. 17 cycles, less than 8 Earth hours. Not enough time for comprehensive threat assessment. Sir, probe drones approaching first target, the sensor officer announces. The main screen shows 3 sleek drones approaching what appears to be a massive weapons platform in Earth's northern hemisphere. Suddenly, the platform shimmers and vanishes, replaced by an ordinary mountain range. Holographic projection, Vexter hisses. Sophisticated, but ultimately primitive deception. Jorak feels momentary relief, until the sensor officer speaks again. Sir, we're detecting energy buildup from the mountain itself. Before Jorak can respond, a blinding beam lances from the seemingly natural formation, vaporizing all 3 drones instantly. The sensor grid briefly overloads, then recovers to show the mountain unchanged, with no visible weapon signature. Silence falls over the command deck. Jorak rises from his chair, moving closer to the display. The hologram wasn't the weapon installation, he realizes. It was concealing the weapon within the planetary feature itself. Vexter's mandibles click rapidly, a sign of distress. How many of their mountains contain similar surprises? Unknown, Jorak admits. Recalibrate our scanners. Focus on natural formations near population centers. As the crew hurries to comply, a communication specialist interrupts. Admiral, we're intercepting increased transmission activity between the 3rd planet and its 4th planet outpost, their Mars colony. Jorak clicks dismissively. A handful of primitive habitats, barely self-sustaining. The transmissions are heavily encrypted, sir. Military-grade protocols unlike anything we've intercepted previously. Jorak feels the weight of command pressing down on his carapace. The humans are proving more complex than anticipated. Still, they are merely delaying the inevitable. The First Imperial Armada will arrive soon, with overwhelming force that no amount of hidden weapons could withstand. Continue orbital bombardment of their satellite network, he orders. Focus on military frequencies. I want them blind and deaf before the Armada arrives. As the Vanguard ships move to comply, Jorak doesn't notice the subtle changes in Earth's upper atmosphere. Thousands of microscopic particles being released from seemingly defunct weather satellites, forming an invisible mesh that records every detail of Azrathi weapon systems, shield configurations, and communication frequencies. Beneath the Sonoran Desert, Dr. Chen watches this data flood into her systems, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "Got you," she whispers as the complete technical specifications of the Azrathi fleet compile in her database. "Now we know exactly how to take you down." Captain Sophia Reyes watches her crew transform the Mars colony with military precision. Habitat Dome 3 splits along invisible seams, its seemingly fragile structure folding back to reveal a massive rail gun battery gleaming under the pale Martian sunlight. Lieutenant Jackson approaches, his lab coat discarded for a tactical uniform. "Battery 7 through 12 are online, Captain," he reports. "Power systems at 97% capacity. Targeting systems aligned and locked." Reyes nods, her eyes never leaving the tactical display showing the Azrathi fleet's position. "And the underground systems? Fully operational. The aquifer cooling system is maintaining optimal temperatures for the reactor cores." The Martian colony, supposedly struggling to maintain life support with primitive technology, now hums with power. For years, supply ships had delivered scientific equipment and agricultural necessities that were actually components for weapons systems, assembled in secret by colonists who were all military personnel with advanced engineering degrees. "They've stopped scanning us," Reyes notes, studying the fleet movements. "They think we're insignificant." Jackson grins. Their mistake. In the colony's command center, previously disguised as a hydroponics lab, Reyes addresses her assembled officers. The room, now stripped of its scientific facade, resembles the combat information center of a battleship. "The Azrathi have requested reinforcements," she informs them, bringing up intercepts of alien communications on the main screen. "Their main invasion fleet will arrive within 6 hours. We have one job: ensure they regret that decision." She zooms in on the tactical display, highlighting key points in Mars orbit. "We'll remain dormant until the invasion fleet passes this marker. Let them commit fully to Earth approach. Once they cross the line, we hit their rear echelon with everything we have." Lieutenant Commander Diaz, their weapons specialist, gestures to a simulation showing the rail gun firing pattern. The first volley targets their propulsion systems. "These ships are built for forward defense. Their engines are vulnerable." "What about their shields?" asks Communications Officer Chen. Diaz smiles grimly. "That's the beauty of kinetic projectiles. Their shields are designed to disperse energy weapons, lasers, plasma, particle beams. But a tungsten rod traveling at 15 kilometers per second. Physics is physics everywhere in the universe. Mass times velocity equals devastation." Reyes checks the chronometer on the wall. T-4 hours until we show our hand. Department heads, final checks on all systems. Everyone else, get some rest. It may be the last you'll have for a while. As her officers disperse, Reyes retreats to her quarters, a Spartan room with a single window facing Earth. The blue planet hangs in the black sky, deceptively peaceful. She opens a secure communication channel to General Tanaka. "Mars Defense Station fully operational," she reports. "All weapons systems green. Waiting for the fleet to cross the engagement line." Tanaka's voice comes through, calm despite the circumstances. "Good work, Captain. Earth defenses are prepared as well. The President has authorized final protocols. Operation Falling Star is now active." Reyes feels a momentary chill. Falling Star, the last resort option, involving orbital platforms that could render portions of Earth uninhabitable if necessary to stop the invasion. "Understood, sir. We won't let it come to that." "I know you won't." Tanaka pauses. "Sophia, your father would be proud." The unexpected personal comment catches her off guard. Admiral Reyes had died in the first contact incident 15 years ago. His ship destroyed while investigating the alien crash site. His sacrifice had been disguised as a training accident, his name never publicly honored. "Thank you, sir." She clears her throat. "Mars will not fail. As she ends the transmission, Reyes moves to a hidden compartment in her quarters, extracting a worn photograph, her father in his uniform, standing beside a much younger Tanaka. She places it carefully on her desk. "Today we finish what you started, Dad," she whispers, before returning to the command center where humanity's first line of defense awaits the coming storm. The first Imperial Armada emerges from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a spectacle of military precision that has cowed countless civilizations. 5,000 warships arranged in concentric spheres around the Emperor's personal dreadnought, a vessel the size of a small moon, plated with rare metals harvested from conquered worlds. Admiral Jorak's vanguard ships move to rendezvous with the main fleet, transmitting tactical data as they approach. On the command deck of the Imperial dreadnought, Grand Admiral Kivresh reviews the information with growing irritation. "These anomalous readings concern me," he tells his strategic council. "The humans display technological inconsistencies, advanced capabilities interspersed with primitive systems." Fleet tactician Murak dismisses the concerns with a wave of his upper limbs, a common pattern among species in early development. They achieve breakthroughs in isolated areas while lagging in others, nothing that merits delaying the invasion. Kivresh is not convinced. Admiral Jorak reports holographic defenses concealing real weapons. Such deception suggests desperation. Murak interrupts. "They know they cannot match our power, so they attempt to appear stronger than they are. A psychological tactic used by 17 other species we have conquered. All failed." The Grand Admiral reluctantly orders the fleet to proceed toward Earth. The massive array of ships accelerates smoothly, weapons charging, shields at maximum power. As they pass the orbit of the fourth planet, Mars, according to their intelligence, Kivresh orders a perfunctory scan of the small research outpost visible on its surface. Minimal life signs, the sensor operator reports. Primitive structures, no threat detected. Captain Rice watches on her display as the Azrathi fleet passes the engagement line. Her finger hovers over the activation control. "All stations report ready status," she commands. Throughout the Mars colony, targeting systems lock onto the Azrathi fleet's vulnerable rear sections. Power levels spike as weapons systems draw maximum energy. "Firing solution confirmed," Lieutenant Jackson announces. "Primary and secondary targets locked." Reyes takes a deep breath. "For Earth," she says quietly, then presses the control. "Fire all batteries." The surface of Mars erupts with activity. Hidden railgun batteries fire simultaneously, launching hundreds of tungsten rods toward the unsuspecting Azrathi fleet. Each projectile, simple in design but precisely machined, accelerates to near-relativistic speeds. On the Imperial dreadnought, alarms blare as rear sensors detect incoming objects. Projectiles approaching from the fourth planet. The sensor operator shouts, "Impact in 3 seconds." "Impossible." Kivresh begins, but never finishes the thought. The first wave of kinetic projectiles tears through the rear ships of the Azrathi formation. Their shields, calibrated for energy weapons, offer no resistance to solid objects moving at such velocity. Hull plating designed to withstand plasma bombardment crumples like paper as the tungsten rods pass through multiple vessels before fragmenting. In the resulting chaos, ship collides with ship as the perfect formation dissolves. Emergency transmissions flood communication channels as damaged vessels lose control and veer into the path of others. Kivresh stares at the tactical display in disbelief as nearly 200 ships register critical damage in the initial volley. Before he can issue orders, a second wave launches from Mars. "How?" he demands. The colony had no weapon signatures, no power readings consistent with this level of attack. On Mars, Rise watches the destruction with grim satisfaction. "Recalibrate aim for second wave targets," she orders. "Focus on their command vessels." As the rail guns adjust their firing solution, the hidden missile silos throughout the colony open simultaneously. Hundreds of missiles, each containing multiple warheads specifically designed to exploit Azrathi shield frequencies, launch toward the now disorganized fleet. Missile launch detected. An Azrathi officer shouts. Multiple signatures. Thousands of them. For the first time in his long military career, Grand Admiral Kavresh feels the unfamiliar sensation of fear. The supposedly primitive humans had just executed a perfect ambush, turning the insignificant red planet into a devastating weapon. All ships, he commands, defensive formation beta. Prepare point defense systems. The humans are not what we thought they were. The Imperial dreadnought shudders as nearby ships explode, debris peppering its shields like metallic hail. Grand Admiral Kavresh steadies himself against his command console, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. The tactical display shows alarming numbers. Over 400 ships damaged or destroyed in the initial Mars assault, with more falling to the missile barrage still underway. Reconfigure shields to maximum dispersion, Kavresh orders. All functional vessels establish defensive perimeter around damaged ships. The Azrathi are not easily defeated. Centuries of conquest have prepared them for setbacks. Their remaining vessels move with practiced precision, forming protective formations around vulnerable comrades. Energy weapons target incoming missiles, creating brilliant flashes visible from Earth's surface as they detonate the warheads prematurely. Forward elements continue toward Earth, Kavresh commands. We will not be deterred by a single defensive position. 3,000 ships, still an overwhelming force, press onward toward the blue planet. Their advance is more cautious now, sensors sweeping for hidden threats, weapons primed for immediate response. In the underground facility beneath the Sonoran Desert, Dr. Chen monitors the Azrathi fleet's approach. They're still coming, she reports to General Tanaka. Reduced numbers, but maintaining attack formation. Tanaka nods, unsurprised. The Mars defense was never meant to stop them completely, just to make them angry, sloppy. He turns to Professor Zhang. Status of the lunar array. Charged and ready, Zhang confirms, awaiting optimal firing solution when they cross the threshold. On the main display, thousands of small objects rise from Earth's atmosphere, the drone swarm launching from hidden bases worldwide. Each simple device, no larger than a household appliance, carries a single specialized payload designed by Dr. Chen based on the data gathered from the destroyed satellites. They're targeting our drones, a technician announces as the Azrathi fleet opens fire on the approaching swarm. Destruction rate at 30%, 40%. Expected, Tanaka says calmly. Each destroyed drone releases its electromagnetic material regardless. They're turning our weapons into a dispersal mechanism. Indeed, as each drone explodes, it releases clouds of specialized particles, microscopic EMPs tuned specifically to the frequencies used by Azrathi systems, identified from the Vanguard's attacks. The clouds expand, invisible to Azrathi sensors calibrated for conventional threats. On the Imperial Dreadnought, systems begin failing without warning. Navigation controls freeze. Weapons targeting goes offline. Communication arrays emit only static. What is happening? Kavresh demands as emergency lighting bathes the command deck in crimson. Report. Unknown electromagnetic interference. An officer responds, frantically working unresponsive controls, spreading through all systems. Our shields are allowing it through. They're calibrated to block energy weapons. Not. Whatever this is. Kavresh slams his command staff against the deck in frustration. Recalibrate shields. Isolate affected systems. Impossible, Admiral. The particles are already inside our vessels. They're microscopic, smaller than anything our filters can capture. Throughout the fleet, ship after ship goes dark. Life support fails. Gravitational systems malfunction, sending crew members floating helplessly. Ships drift, colliding with one another in a cascade of destruction. From the lunar surface, what appeared to be a simple crater rim splits open. The massive particle accelerator powers up, its energy signature finally visible to the crippled Azrathi sensors. Energy spike detected from the satellite. An Azrathi officer shouts, his voice rising in panic. Massive weapon charging. Kvresh stares at the moon with dawning horror. The humans had hidden their most powerful weapon on their barren satellite, disguised as a natural formation. Evasive maneuvers, he commands. All ships with functional engines, scatter formation. But it's too late. The concentrated beam lances across space, cutting through disabled Azrathi vessels with terrifying precision. It slices toward the Imperial Dreadnought, the pride of the Azrathi fleet. In the Lunar Control Center, Commander Diana Patel watches through specialized filters as the particle beam strikes its target. Direct hit, she reports to Earth Command. The enemy flagship is critically damaged. On her display, the massive Azrathi vessel splits apart, its reactor containment failing catastrophically. The resulting explosion consumes nearby ships in a miniature nova visible even from Earth. With Grand Admiral Kvresh presumed dead and the Imperial Dreadnought destroyed, command falls to Sub-Admiral Vrental, aboard one of the few capital ships with functioning systems. The tactical situation is unprecedented in Azrathi military history. Over half their fleet disabled or destroyed before reaching the target planet's orbit. Status report, Vrental demands, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. 2,300 vessels still operational. His tactical officer responds, 800 with partial functionality. The remainder are lost or unresponsive. Vrental studies the tactical display, seeking an advantage. The humans have revealed 3 major defensive systems: the Mars colony's weapons, the atmospheric drone swarm, and the lunar particle cannon. Each caught the Azrathi by surprise, but the remaining fleet still outnumbers any visible Earth defenses. The humans have exhausted their primary surprises, Vrental announces to his command staff. They are clever, but no species can maintain unlimited secret weapons. We adapt, we overcome. He issues new orders. The remaining ships form into smaller, dispersed attack groups, harder to target with the lunar cannon. Shield frequencies rotate constantly to prevent further EMP infiltration. Advanced elements launch atmosphere-capable fighters to probe Earth's ground defenses. We will yet claim this world, Vrental declares. For the Imperium. In the Sonoran Desert facility, General Tanaka watches the Azrathi fleet's reorganization with grim respect. They recover quickly, he notes. Adaptive tactics. Dr. Chen nods. They've conquered 17 systems. They don't give up easily. Neither do we, Tanaka responds, entering an authorization code into his terminal. Activate asteroid defense grid. Throughout the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, what appeared to be ordinary mining operations suddenly power up. Propulsion systems ignite on hundreds of seemingly inert rocks, changing their trajectories toward the dispersing Azrathi fleet. Each asteroid, hollowed out and filled with guidance systems and thrusters, becomes a massive kinetic projectile. Asteroid units accelerating, reports a technician. Intercept in 17 minutes. Meanwhile, from Earth's surface, mountain ranges in the Rockies, Andes, Himalayas, and Alps open along camouflaged seams. Massive rail gun batteries emerge, each capable of launching projectiles at hypersonic speeds with pinpoint accuracy. Surface-to-space batteries online, the weapons officer announces. Targeting solution acquired. Tanaka turns to Dr. Chen. Your show now, Doctor. The timing must be perfect. Chen takes a deep breath, fingers poised above her console. Years of theoretical work, simulations, and preparations have led to this moment. Synchronizing all remaining defense systems, she announces. Executing in 3, 2, 1. In space, the International Space Station, evacuated days earlier, fires its thrusters, breaking orbit and accelerating toward the heart of the Azrathi formation. Station Commander Wei Chen, who volunteered to remain aboard, broadcasts on all frequencies for Earth. He initiates the station's self-destruct sequence, converting the entire structure into an electromagnetic pulse bomb. The blast wave expands outward, temporarily disrupting Azrathi communications, just as the railguns fire from Earth's surface. In the confusion, the Azrathi ships fail to detect the incoming asteroids until too late. The massive rocks slam into their dispersed formation, each impact destroying multiple vessels. Debris becomes secondary projectiles, creating a cascade of destruction. Sub-Admiral Vrental watches in horror as his carefully reorganized fleet disintegrates around him. "Impossible," he whispers. "How could they coordinate so many different weapons simultaneously?" The answer comes in the form of a transmission that breaks through on all Azrathi frequencies. Dr. Chen's voice, calm and clear. "You assumed we would be primitive because our visible technology appeared inconsistent. You never considered it might be intentional, that we've been watching the stars for centuries, preparing for this day." On his failing ship, Vrental realizes the fundamental error in the Azrathi approach. They had evaluated Earth based on its apparent technology, never considering that a species might deliberately appear less advanced than they truly were. The ultimate deception. Vrental grips the edge of his command console as the bridge shudders violently. The tactical display flickers with red as ship after ship vanishes from the fleet's registry. The Imperium had never faced a campaign like this, where the prey became the predator. He forces himself to focus. Surviving vessels. Report. Static answers him for a moment before fragmented responses filter in. Shields. Non-responsive. Engine. Damaged. Attempting evasive. Hull integrity failing. The once mighty invasion force is now a broken, desperate fleet. Even with his adaptive tactics, the humans had anticipated them at every turn. They had known the Azrathi would reform into smaller attack groups. They had known they would attempt atmospheric probes. And worst of all, they had known when to strike with maximum force. Vrental clenches his jaw. His duty is clear. Even in defeat, the Imperium does not surrender. Surviving capital ships form a defensive perimeter. We cover the retreat of any vessels that can still warp out. Fighters escort the carriers. Another tremor shakes the ship, and the display distorts once more. The asteroid barrage has not yet ceased. He watches in growing dread as one final massive projectile hurtles toward them, its surface still glowing from atmospheric exit. A desperate course correction could avoid it. If they had working thrusters, brace for impact. The asteroid smashes into the forward hull of their sister dreadnought, the shockwave rocking Vrental's own ship. His display goes dark, emergency klaxons howling through the bridge. Sparks rain from overhead conduits, and several officers are thrown from their stations. The artificial gravity flickers, then stabilizes at half power. Vrental drags himself upright, scanning the ruined bridge. Damage report. Warp drive offline. Primary weapons unresponsive. Shields gone. We cannot fight. For the first time, true silence grips the Azrathi command deck. The Imperium does not surrender, but neither does it throw away what remains of its strength. Vrental exhales sharply. Signal all ships. Retreat. A stunned pause follows. Then an officer murmurs, "Sub-Admiral." Vrental does not look at him. He does not have the luxury of pride. The Imperium will return. We will learn from this failure. But if we die today, there will be no one left to avenge our fallen. Issue the order. Now. The transmission relays across what remains of the fleet. Damaged ships flicker with residual energy as they prepare for the jump to deep space. Human railguns continue to fire, catching those too slow, but some Azrathi ships slip past the carnage, vanishing into the void. On Earth's surface, General Tanaka watches the retreat with a mix of relief and grim determination. "They'll be back," he mutters. Dr. Chen nods. "Yes, but next time, we won't be defending. We'll be waiting for them." High above, the last Azrathi warship disappears into the darkness of space, leaving behind the wreckage of an armada that had once believed itself invincible.